The moment the gates of Fairmont Crest close, we're led to believe every secret is buried behind flawless security and polished smiles. But just one erased camera feed, one warehouse engulfed in flames, and one man who vanishes without leaving a body are enough to strip away the illusion. This is not a sanctuary of redemption, but a battlefield where gratitude, desire, and power are twisted beyond recognition. Joey walks away from Fairmont Crest in silence, but he carries a secret that could bring everything crashing down. Hayley is trapped on the deadly line between Bill's trust and her moment of weakness with Izaiah, transforming from a grateful survivor into the center of suspicion. And Izaiah, no body, no grave, no conclusion. Is he the infiltrator sent to destroy them, or just another pawn erased before he could speak? In today's video, we dive into that deadly night at the abandoned warehouse, retrace every detail wiped from the surveillance system, decode why Joey left, why Bill no longer trusts anyone, and how a single gunshot in the dark could ignite a chain of crimes threatening to devour all of Fairmont Crest. If you think this is just a messy love triangle, think again. Behind Hayley's eyes, Joey's footsteps, and the name Izaiah lies a force none of them saw coming, not until every piece of evidence was already burned to ash. Joey had always felt like the one who came in second in every story at Fairmont Crest, from the moment he stepped into Bill's world with its secret bargains and half-told truths, to the way he watched Hayley, obedient, grateful, gentle, standing beside Bill like the perfect symbol of gifted loyalty. That was why, when the first cracks appeared in her behavior, Joey didn't just see them with the eyes of an observant man, but with the instincts of someone far too familiar with fractures hidden beneath polished manners. He saw her texting more often, leaving the estate with flimsy excuses, coming back with eyes both tired and lit up, as if someone had whispered a new promise into her ear. And then, when he caught the image of Hayley standing too close to Izaiah, her gaze unconsciously tilting toward that stranger with a flicker of emotion she thought she'd concealed, what rose in Joey was not only anger on Bill's behalf, but a stinging humiliation that he had been right all along. At Fairmont Crest, everything could be staged, even gratitude. Hayley did not begin her connection with Izaiah as an act of betrayal. In a world where everything around her was tied to Bill, the debt of salvation, the chance at a new life, a roof over her head, a future, along with all the invisible reminders that she must always be good, loyal, and compliant, Izaiah appeared like a dangerous crack in a fortress she hadn't realized she had built. He made her feel seen as a real person, not just an ornamental figure in the redemption story of a billionaire desperate to prove his kindness. Her attraction to Izaiah was instinctive, fragile, selfish, not carefully calculated, and it was precisely the lack of calculation that pushed her further into guilt. She knew Bill trusted her, knew Joey doubted her, knew that a single misstep caught in the open could bring down the life she had painstakingly constructed, but in those rare moments at Izaiah's side, she felt briefly freed from the moral debt she owed Bill. That feeling was both sweet and poisonous, and it blinded her to the warning signs Joey picked up immediately. Joey watched her not just out of jealous loyalty to Bill, but because he was haunted by the need to prove he was the only one willing to see the true nature of the people pretending to be harmless around Fairmont Crest. When he followed Izaiah's trail to an old warehouse outside the gated community, once used for illegal operations, an old survival instinct resurfaced from the days before he stepped into the polished world of the elite. He did not believe in coincidences. A man with a background that looked too clean, a gaze that seemed too knowing, arriving just as Hayley began to waver, connected to a place that had once hidden contraband, and from there leading back to suspicious transactions between Randy and Bill. None of that was random. Joey understood that Izaiah had not simply wandered through those gates. Someone had sent him, someone who understood the power structure at Fairmont Crest well enough to choose the right person, the right moment, the right weakness. The link between that warehouse and Bill's filthy past tightened like a fist in Joey's chest, because he realized that if he exposed the truth, he would not only drag Izaiah down but drag Bill into the mud with him. And although Joey had hated the way Bill manipulated everyone, a part of him still could not bear to watch that empire be torn apart by hands even more ruthless. When Joey confronted Hayley, bringing the evidence he'd gathered, he was not only accusing her, he was desperately trying to pull her back from the edge. But in Hayley's eyes, every warning he gave was tainted by control and selfishness. She was too used to men deciding her life for her. Bill gave her a chance and never let her forget it was a debt. Joey saw her as a dangerous variable that could ruin his efforts to shield Bill. Now Izaiah was the only one who made her feel like the choice belonged to her. So instead of seeing Joey's fear, she only saw jealousy, suspicion, and a hunger to control. Hayley's defense of Izaiah was not simply about believing in his innocence, but a panicked reaction from someone terrified of losing the only part of her life that did not feel defined by someone else. And in that moment when she stood between Joey and Izaiah, she unknowingly locked herself into a position with no way back, because from that second on, any choice she made could be twisted into evidence against her. The night at the warehouse was the breaking point. Joey came with files, copies, data that placed Izaiah near shady dealings connected to Randy, proving he was far from clean. Izaiah came with a vague proposal of cooperation, veiled hints about using old information to buy future safety, the kind of language everyone in their world understood, but no one dared to say outright. Hayley came with a heart in chaos, trying to separate truth from manipulation, only to grow more lost the longer she looked, because Izaiah knew how to press on her fear of being owned, while Joey struck at her fear of being exposed. The tension in the air was not just about secrets on paper, but about the darkness each of them was fighting inside, Joey wrestling with rage and twisted loyalty, Hayley with her small, shameful longing for freedom and the crushing weight of Bill's favor, Izaiah with the thin line between assignment and emotion if he truly had been planted by someone. The gunshot was no mere accident. Minutes before it rang out, the surveillance cameras had been taken out quickly, cleanly, without the clumsy mark of an amateur. That meant someone knew exactly where the cameras were, knew the maintenance schedule, knew the blind spots in the system, and more importantly, knew precisely when these three would be there. Joey realized instantly he was no longer the only one watching this game. Someone had been following him while he was following Izaiah, someone who wanted to make sure no image survived to testify. Hayley felt a chill rip down her spine at the sound of shattering metal, as if the entire story had just been erased at the push of a hidden button before it could become evidence. And Izaiah, if he was not the mastermind, would have understood in that moment that he was merely a pawn on a larger board. Gunfire in the chaos, flickering lights, hurried footsteps, then silence. When it was over, the records room was spotless to the point of suspicion. The files Joey believed he'd hidden so carefully were gone without a trace, as if someone had slipped in before them or alongside them, waiting for the perfect moment to erase everything. The next morning, each of them told a different story, not just to protect themselves, but because each had only seen a fragment of a truth warped by fear and self-interest. Hayley told a story of a tense confrontation in which she was dragged in as a victim, trying to stop Joey and Izaiah from going too far. Joey told a story of discovering a dangerous plant inside Fairmont Crest, using Hayley as an entry point to strike at Bill's weak spot, and his desperate attempt to stop it in time. If any secret report from Izaiah had been sent, it never surfaced publicly, it would only exist in the hands of the power that had pulled the strings from the start. The contradictions in their accounts turned them all into suspects. Hayley seemed to know more than she admitted, Joey seemed to understand too well the shadows behind Bill, and Izaiah vanished like ink wiped off a page. The absence of Isaiah's body transformed the incident from a violent accident into a specter hanging over Fairmont Crest. If he was dead, he had died too cleanly, no body, no trace, no solid witness. If he was alive, he had become an invisible threat to all of them, holding Hayley's secrets, understanding Joey's methods, knowing the blurred lines between Bill and Randy that Bill had tried so hard to scrub from his public image. Psychologically, it was torture. Hayley lived in constant fear that one day a familiar gaze would return to drag her down with her sins. Joey lived with the sense of being watched in return, knowing every move could be turned against him. Bill, once the missing pieces of the warehouse night reached his ears, reacted exactly as a man long steeped in power would. He trusted fully in no one, not even those he had saved, paid, or who had stood at his side. That suspicion was the first cut into his faith in Hayley. Hayley lost Bill's trust not only because of what happened that night, but because of how she behaved afterward, revealing she was no longer the flawlessly pure woman he needed her to be. She avoided his gaze, answered slowly, let details slip that did not align with what he heard elsewhere. For Bill, a man obsessed with minimizing risk, someone as unpredictable as Hayley had become was unacceptable. He began to dig into her past, review footage, question sources, comb through old dealings, and the more he searched, the more gaps he found around her. Whether Hayley had truly betrayed him or had simply been swept up in something beyond her control no longer mattered. In Bill's world, a person carrying that many blank spaces was already a threat. Withdrawing his trust was not only punishment, it was survival. Joey left Fairmont Crest quietly, but not as a defeated man. He left as someone carrying a secret capable of shattering walls that had always seemed unbreakable. He knew for certain Izaiah had not come there by chance. In tracking the trail, Joey had discovered vague but telling links between the warehouse documents and an intermediary account tied to a powerful figure who had once clashed with Bill in past deals, someone with every reason to expose or exploit Bill's dirty history and use it as a noose. He understood that someone had used Hayley as emotional bait, used his own suspicion as fuel, driving all of them into one carefully arranged collision point before erasing the evidence in a single night. Joey did not leave to run away. He left to avoid becoming the next sacrificial pawn, keeping his last piece of information as insurance for his own life. That secret might be the identity of the person who brought Izaiah into Fairmont Crest, or proof that someone on the inside tipped off others about Joey's possession of the files, or a sign that part of Bill's own empire had betrayed him long ago. Meanwhile, Randy never truly disappeared from the picture. The shady deals between him and Bill, the shipments, the covert contracts once stored in that warehouse, had now shifted into rumor and myth, no hard proof, but still lethal enough to destroy. The warehouse incident did not simply wipe away evidence against Randy or Bill, it opened a vacuum for another force to step in and rewrite the narrative. Whoever controlled the missing piece, where Izaiah went, who broke the cameras, who cleared the files, would control Fairmont Crest. Every player in this game was being pushed to the edge where their only choices were to sell their soul to a stronger hand or accept being stripped bare. Hayley wrestled with whether to confess everything to Bill in a last attempt to salvage some shred of trust, or to go on hiding her moments of weakness, gambling that silence might spare her from becoming the scapegoat. Joey wrestled with whether to return and lay out the truth, confronting the man who had once been his benefactor, or to remain a ghost outside the gates, holding his secret like a double-edged blade. Bill wrestled with whether to preserve his spotless facade in public or to confront the filth of his own past before someone else weaponized it against him. In the end, the warehouse explosion was only the spark that triggered a chain reaction. It did not erase guilt, only the physical proof, leaving behind fractures in hearts, in the hierarchy of power, and in the way they all saw one another. From that moment on, every glance at Fairmont Crest carried suspicion, every handshake hid calculation, every pledge of loyalty could be bent with a single resurrected file from the past. Cornered, each of them began sliding further down the path of darker choices, Hayley willing to lie more to cover one moment of weakness, Bill becoming colder in cutting out risks, Joey becoming harsher in keeping his distance and using information as a weapon. No one remained entirely innocent after that night, and that, more than the blast itself, was the most terrifying legacy it left behind.